In the vast expanse of the United States, truck drivers are one of the most important forces that keep our nation moving. These brave men and women dare to face the roads every day for us, often encountering challenges beyond imagination. Tonight, we bring you two chilling tales of truckers who, amidst their journeys, come face to face with terror. First, we follow a driver whose routine haul turns into a nightmarish pursuit by a sinister and malevolent figure, pushing him to confront his deepest fears. Then another trucker's long haul descends into horror as he finds himself stalked by an unrelenting and evil presence, transforming his journey into a desperate fight for survival. These men, like so many others, set out to do their job, but instead stumbled into a realm where fear reigns supreme. They don't realize it, but they just stepped into the realm of Mr. Scary Guy. Prepare yourself for a journey beyond the ordinary, into the shadows of your deepest fears. Welcome to the world of Mr. Scary Guy. I've been a truck driver for over 20 years, and in that time I've seen my share of strange and unexplainable events. But nothing comes close to what happened one cold December night in the back roads of Montana. This is a story I've only shared with a few close friends and family, and even then they've had a hard time believing it. But I swear to you, every word of this story is true. It started off as any other long haul. I had a delivery to make from Seattle to Minneapolis, a route I knew like the back of my hand. The company I work for was pushing for quicker delivery times, and I was already behind schedule due to a mechanical issue earlier in the day. By the time I hit the Montana border, it was already getting dark. The night was moonless, the kind of pitch-black darkness that seems to swallow up your headlights. The temperature had dropped significantly, and a light snow began to fall. I've driven in worse conditions, so I wasn't too concerned. I was more worried about the stretch of road I was on. Highway 2, known to us truckers as the High Line, is notorious for being desolate and isolated. It's a long, lonely road with very little in the way of civilization. I was about 30 miles outside a small town called Glasgow when I first noticed something strange. A pair of headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. Other drivers use this road too, though not many at this time of night. But as the minutes ticked by, those headlights didn't seem to get any closer. It was as if the car behind me was maintaining a perfect distance, neither gaining on me nor falling back. I pushed it out of my mind, attributing it to my nerves and the isolation. I turned up the radio, hoping some music would keep me company. But after about 20 minutes, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The headlights were still there, unwavering in their distance. I decided to pull over at the next rest stop to stretch my legs and clear my head. When I finally saw the sign for a rest area a few miles ahead, I felt a wave of relief. I signaled and started to slow down, pulling into the empty parking lot. The car behind me followed suit, stopping a good 50 yards back. I stepped out of my cab and into the frigid night air, trying to shake off the unease that had settled over me. The rest area was eerily quiet, the only sound being the wind rustling through the trees. I glanced back at the car, but I couldn't make out anything through the glare of its headlights. Something about the situation made me uneasy, so I decided to get back on the road quickly. As I climbed back into my truck and started the engine, the car behind me did the same. This time, it pulled out behind me and stayed at the same distance, like it was tethered to my trailer. About 15 minutes later, I saw a small diner up ahead, its neon sign flickering weakly. It was one of those old-fashioned diners, the kind that had probably been there since the 50s. I decided to stop again, thinking maybe I could find some answers or at least a friendly face. I pulled into the diner's lot, and once again, the car followed, parking at the far end of the lot. I walked into the diner, the bell above the door jingling softly. The place was empty except for the waitress behind the counter, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes. I ordered a coffee and took a seat by the window where I could keep an eye on my truck and the mysterious car.
Rough night,
the waitress asked as she poured my coffee. You could say that, I replied, glancing out the window. There's this car that's been following me for the past hour. It's starting to freak me out. She looked out the window, her expression unreadable.
That's unusual around here. Folks mind their own business on these roads.
I nodded, taking a sip of the hot coffee. Yeah, well, something doesn't feel right. She leaned in a little closer, lowering her voice.
I've heard stories. People disappearing on these roads, strange sightings. I'd be careful if I were you.
Her words sent a chill down my spine. I finished my coffee quickly and thanked her, leaving a tip on the counter. As I walked back to my truck, I noticed that the car's headlights were off, but I still couldn't see inside due to the darkness and the tint of the windows. I decided to get back on the road, hoping that putting some distance between me and the diner would lose the car. But as soon as I started driving, the headlights reappeared behind me, keeping the same steady distance as before. It was well past midnight now and the snow was falling heavier. I was getting tired, but the adrenaline kept me alert. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't drive all the way to Minneapolis with this car tailing me. I remembered there was a truck stop about 50 miles ahead. It was bigger and usually had other drivers around. I figured if I could get there, I might find some help or at least be in a more populated area. I pressed on, my eyes constantly flicking between the road and the rearview mirror. When I finally saw the lights of the truck stop, I felt a surge of relief. I pulled in and parked among a few other trucks. The car pulled in too, but this time it parked at the far edge of the lot, away from the other vehicles. I got out and walked over to a group of drivers who were standing around, smoking and chatting. I told them about the car and how it had been following me. They looked over at the car, their faces serious.
That's not right,
one of them said.
You want us to go over there with you?
I nodded, grateful for the support. We walked over to the car, the snow crunching under our boots. As we approached, the driver's side window rolled down slowly. Inside was a man, probably in his late 40s, with a grizzled beard and a cap pulled low over his eyes.
Can I help you?
He asked, his voice calm and even. You've been following me for hours, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What do you want? The man looked at me, then at the other drivers. He smiled, a cold, unnerving smile.
Just making sure you get to your destination safely.
Before I could respond, he rolled up the window and started the car. He backed out of the lot and drove off into the night, leaving us standing there in the falling snow. The other drivers tried to reassure me, saying he was probably just some crazy loner, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I thanked them and went back to my truck, locking the doors and settling in for a restless night. I didn't see the car again for the rest of the drive. I made it to Minneapolis without any more incidents, but the whole experience left me rattled. I couldn't stop thinking about that man's smile and his cryptic words. A few weeks later, I was back on the same route, this time during the day. I stopped at the same diner and saw the waitress again. She recognized me and asked if everything had turned out okay. I told her what had happened, and she listened intently, her expression grave.
You know,
she said quietly,
there was a man who used to drive these roads years ago. They say he went crazy after his family died in a car accident. He blamed himself because he was behind the wheel. He started following truckers, thinking he could save them from the same fate. But sometimes, those he followed would disappear. No one knows what happened to them.
I felt a cold dread wash over me. Do you think that was him? She shrugged.
Who knows? But if I were you, I'd be careful on these roads. There are things out here that we don't understand.
I nodded, thanking her for the coffee and the warning. As I got back into my truck and pulled onto the highway, I couldn't help but glance in my rearview mirror. For the rest of my career, I never drove that stretch of road at night again. To this day, I can't explain what happened or why that man was following me. But every time I think about it, I feel a chill run down my spine. Some things are better left unexplained, and some roads are better left untraveled after dark. For almost 3 decades now, I've worked as a truck driver, encountering countless unsettling experiences on the road. However, there's one particular incident that continues to haunt me, and that I share with everyone. This unnerving event occurred around 5 years ago on a lonely stretch of highway in Arkansas. I was hauling a load of steel from Little Rock to Memphis, a route I'd driven countless times. It was a routine trip, or so I thought. The night started off like any other, and the road was empty. Just me, my truck, and the open highway. I had my radio on, tuned to a country station, and the soft twang of a guitar filled the cab. I was making good time, planning to stop at a rest area just past the halfway point. The first few hours were uneventful, just miles of asphalt disappearing under my wheels. But then things started to get strange. I was about 2 hours into my drive when I saw the first set of lights in my rearview mirror. They were far off, barely more than a glimmer. I didn't think much of it at first. Trucks and cars came and went all the time on these roads. But these lights, they seemed to be following me. I kept an eye on them, expecting them to either pass me or fall behind. But they stayed right there, just a few hundred yards back, trailing me like a shadow. I pushed the thought aside, convincing myself it was just another trucker on the same route. Another hour passed and the lights were still there. By this point, I was starting to get uneasy. I picked up my CB radio and called out, "Breaker, breaker, this is Big Rig Mike. Anyone out there on I-40 eastbound just past mile marker 132? Silence. The radio crackled, but no one responded. I tried again. "Anybody out there?" Still nothing. I was alone. I glanced back in the mirror. The lights were closer now, brighter. Whoever it was, he was gaining on me. I decided to let him pass. I eased off the gas, slowing down to let the vehicle overtake me. But instead of passing, the lights just slowed down with me, matching my speed. A cold knot of fear settled in my stomach. This wasn't normal. I grabbed my radio again. "If you're out there, buddy, just pass me already. Plenty of room on the road." No response. I sped up, trying to put some distance between us, but the lights stayed right behind me. I was doing 75, then 80, and still, he followed. I could feel my pulse quickening, a sense of dread creeping in. What the hell did he want? I saw a rest area up ahead and decided to pull over. Maybe if I stopped, he'd just keep going. I signaled and pulled off the highway, the gravel crunching under my tires as I came to a stop. The lights followed me into the rest area, parking a few spaces away. I watched as the vehicle, an old beat-up pickup truck, finally came into view. The engine idled for a moment, then shut off. The headlights blinked out, plunging the area into darkness. I couldn't see who was inside, but I could feel his eyes on me. I waited, my hand hovering over the door handle. Nothing happened. The truck just sat there, silent and still. I decided to get out, stretch my legs, and maybe get a look at whoever was tailing me. I stepped out of my cab, the cool night air hitting my face. I glanced over at the pickup. The windows were tinted, impossible to see inside. I walked around to the front of my truck, pretending to check my tires. My eyes never left the pickup. "Hey, you need something," I called out. No answer. I took a few steps closer. "Look, if this is some kind of joke, it ain't funny." Still nothing. I was about to turn back when I heard the creak of a door opening. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. A figure stepped out of the pickup, shrouded in darkness. He was tall, with a heavy build, and wore a long coat that flapped in the breeze. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at me. The man didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at me. Then, without a word, he got back in his truck and slammed the door. The engine roared to life and he sped off, tires screeching as he disappeared into the night. I stood there, bewildered. What the hell was that all about? I shook my head, trying to shake off the unease. I got back in my cab and locked the doors, deciding to put some miles between me and that strange encounter. I pulled out of the rest area and back onto the highway, the road stretching out before me. The next hour was uneventful, and I started to relax, thinking maybe it was just some weirdo messing with me. But that calm was shattered when I saw those familiar lights in my mirror again. The pickup was back, tailing me at a distance. I cursed under my breath, my hands gripping the steering wheel. This was getting out of hand. I needed to lose him. I pressed down on the gas, my truck roaring as I pushed it to its limits. The pickup kept pace, the lights growing brighter as it closed the distance. I swerved, trying to shake him, but he matched every move, like a predator stalking its prey. My mind raced, trying to figure out what to do. I knew there was a small town up ahead, a place called Brinkley. Maybe I could lose him in the streets, find a cop, or at least some witnesses. I took the next exit, my tires squealing as I made the sharp turn. The pickup followed. I sped through the empty streets, the lights of the town blurring past me. The pickup stayed right on my tail, relentless. I turned down side streets, hoping to lose him in the maze of roads, but he was always there, a constant, terrifying presence. I was running out of options. I spotted a gas station up ahead, its neon sign flickering in the darkness. I made a split-second decision and pulled in, skidding to a stop in front of the pumps. I jumped out of my cab, waving frantically at the attendant inside. "Call the police!" I shouted. "Someone's following me!" The attendant, a young kid with wide eyes, nodded and grabbed the phone. I glanced back at the pickup. It had stopped at the entrance to the station, its headlights glaring like eyes. I felt a surge of anger. I wasn't going to let this psycho scare me. I grabbed a tire iron from my cab and marched toward the pickup, ready to confront whoever was inside. "Get out here!" I yelled, banging the tire iron against the side of the truck. "You got a problem, let's settle it." The door opened slowly and the man stepped out again. He was wearing the same long coat, his face hidden in the shadows. He didn't move, just stood there, watching me. "Why are you following me?" I demanded. "What do you want?" The man tilted his head as if considering the question. Then he spoke, his voice low and raspy.
"You took something that doesn't belong to you."
I was taken aback. "What are you talking about? I don't even know you."
"You will.
He replied, taking a step closer.
You will."
I raised the tire iron, ready to defend myself, but before I could react, he lunged at me. We struggled, the tire iron slipping from my grasp. I tried to fight him off, but he was too strong. He pinned me to the ground, his hands around my throat. I gasped for air, my vision blurring. The last thing I saw was his face, finally illuminated by the gas station lights. It was a mask, a grotesque, twisted mask that looked like it had been made from human skin. Everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on the ground, my head throbbing. The pickup was gone, and the gas station attendant was kneeling beside me, his face pale with fear.
"The police are on their way,"
he said.
"Are you okay?"
I nodded, struggling to sit up. My throat was sore and my body ached all over. I looked around, but there was no sign of the pickup. It was like he had vanished into thin air. The police arrived a few minutes later, taking my statement and searching the area. They found nothing. No tire tracks, no evidence, nothing. It was like the whole thing had been a bad dream, but it wasn't a dream. The bruises on my neck and the fear in my gut were all too real. The police didn't have any answers, just told me to be careful and report any further incidents. I got back in my truck and finished my delivery, but the rest of the drive was a blur. All I could think about was that mask, those haunting words. "You took something that doesn't belong to you." I never found out who he was or what he wanted, but from that night on, I always felt like I was being watched. Every time I drove through Arkansas, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was out there waiting. And sometimes late at night, when the highway is empty and the darkness closes in, I see those lights in my mirror, trailing me like a ghost. So if you're ever driving through Arkansas late at night and you see a set of headlights that won't leave you alone, do yourself a favor and keep driving. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep going. Because you never know who might be following you. Another 2 creepy stories have come to an end. I hope you always pay respects to our truck drivers, as you saw what they might face to deliver for you. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and if you have a story that's even more terrifying, send it over. And always remember, the real monsters hide in plain sight. This is Mr. Scary Guy saying, Sleep well.